Britain is an overcrowded island. In the last 30 years, an increasing population has made its mark on both the urban and rural landscape. Our country has changed forever. England is now the most densely populated country in Europe. We now have more people per square mile than China, Japan, or India. Britain has an official population of nearly 64 million, increasing at an unprecedented rate and putting an unsustainable strain on the fabric of the UK. The evidence is everywhere. On housing, despite periods of frantic house building on both greenfield and brownfield sites, the number of available homes falls woefully short of needs, and limited supply just fuels long-term house price inflation. On services, public services, the NHS, education, local authorities and the police are stretched thin the length and breadth of the country. On public finances, the cost of an extended benefit system and public pension provision has become unsustainable without radical change. On transport, our transport infrastructure is not coping, and major road and rail network improvements are merely playing catch-up with a population explosion that appears to be out of control.
Population growth at this level is completely unsustainable for our country. There is no indication that it will slow without radical intervention by ourselves.
63.7 million is the official estimate, but successive official figures have been shown to be inaccurate. Many statistical indicators point to the real figure being very much higher, and whichever trends you look at, they are all going up, with a significant upswing in recent years. By 2027, Britain's population will swell by over 10% to 70 million.
The consequences of this are widespread on the space we have to move around in as individuals, on the ethnic makeup of our population, on the provision of housing, on infrastructure, and of course on every aspect of our lives.
Immigration at its current levels is unsustainable. We simply do not have the space or the resources to continually absorb hundreds of thousands of immigrants every year.
The population trends are startling. The Office of National Statistics data reveals that the recent significant upswing in Britain's population growth is entirely fueled by immigration, which is around 5 times the natural rate of population growth. This is unprecedented.
The upswing is due to, almost entirely, immigration, which itself is split into 2 parts: immigration from the EU countries of Eastern Europe and continued immigration from Asia, particularly the Indian subcontinent, and Africa. We see that this has brought about a sense of strain and pressure on all the services, but over and above that is the huge anxiety which this population level and the prospective increase in it has brought to the native British people.
This graph reveals over time the percentage of people who say immigration is the most important issue facing Britain. The trend follows very closely the figures for net migration over the same period, and there is no sign that it is set to reverse. The fact that immigration accounts for the bulk of UK population growth has very profound and continued effects on the demographic makeup of Britain. In particular, the Muslim population multiplied 10 times faster than the rest of society. Now 1 in 9 of our population were born overseas, and in our largest cities, 1 in 3 residents are members of a non-white ethnic minority. Almost 1 in 10 homes has not a single person speaking English as a first language. Politically, the case for promoting immigration has been one of economic benefit. Statistics show otherwise. Official figures show 98% of the jobs created from 1997 to 2009 went to migrants.
We found no systematic empirical evidence to suggest that net immigration creates significant dynamic benefits for the resident population in the UK.
Britain does not suffer from labour shortages. Indeed, for every vacancy, there are 5 unemployed. Amongst graduates, there are an average of 70 applicants for every vacancy.
Although clearly benefiting employers, immigration that is in the best interest of individual employers is not always in the best interest of the economy as a whole.
In 2011, it was reported that of the long-term immigrants from outside of the EU that came to the UK, only 18% came for work. The unprecedented growth in the number of immigrants has put a disproportionate strain on the UK's infrastructure. On our health services, the UK birth rate has seen an upswing in recent years, up 11% since 2004, and immigrant mothers accounting for the majority of that increase. A quarter of babies born in the UK have a foreign-born parent, and in parts of London it's even higher at 3/4 of all babies born. The strain on an already stretched NHS is unsustainable. In a single year, 73% of TB cases and almost 60% of newly diagnosed HIV cases involved people born outside the UK. And 80% of hepatitis B infected UK blood donors were born abroad. Department for Education figures reveal that the immigration baby boom has now impacted on schools. 3 in 10 primary school pupils are from ethnic minorities. More than 1 million children do not speak English as their first language at home. In large parts of London, native English speakers are in the minority. There is a widespread problem of too many children for the available places. The local government association has warned that in areas seeing large immigrant populations, there are pockets of acute shortage, where by 2015 there will be 75% more pupils than spaces. In the next 10 years, 3 million new homes need to be built in the southeast of England alone. These homes need to be built to accommodate the current and intended waves of immigrants.
Well, it means this: even on government figures, we expect to see something like 7 million additional people in England by 21 years from now. And this means, in fact, something like 7 additional cities the size of Birmingham in England.
The largest single factor contributing to the number of new households being formed is net immigration. That's a new home for immigrants every 6 minutes.
Pressure on the supply of accommodation has led to the phenomenon in many parts of the UK known as beds in sheds, concealed illegal structures in gardens and outbuildings. These often dangerous and cramped rooms are offered by unscrupulous landlords to Britain's immigrants. The Metropolitan Police report that a new crime wave has hit London. Foreign nationals commit a quarter of all crimes in London. This statistic sits alongside a league table of arrests for serious offences of foreign nationals. Additionally, the report notes that 1 in 3 Romanian migrants have been arrested at some time. When it comes to cash machine crime, 92% are attributed to Romanian criminals.
Not only do we have no control over the numbers of people coming, but our immigration policy towards the EU is indiscriminate in the real meaning of the word. We don't just admit those people who have the skills we need and who are hard-working and law-abiding, but under EU law we're forced to admit benefits claimants, undesirables and criminals.
The factor that has accelerated the growth in population originated here, in Brussels, the seat of power of the EU. EU Directive 2004/38 formally opened UK borders to any EU citizens to come to work, live and raise their families in the UK.
EU law gives every EU citizen the right to come here if they wish. Now, many come to work, but EU law also gives them access to our housing and benefits system, which is already one of the most easily accessible in the world. In 2014, the floodgates will open again, when the final restrictions are lifted on 29 million Bulgarians and Romanians. The government refuses to even estimate how many will come, but even if it's just a small proportion of their population, it will be in the hundreds of thousands. This will put yet more pressure on our already struggling public services and infrastructure.
Britain bears the brunt of migration within the EU. In the case of Bulgarians, Britain is already home to over 100,000 Bulgarians. Yet Germany has only 75,000. And France just 30,000. Once the EU free movement rules apply to Bulgaria in 2014, there is no reason to think that Britain will lose its favoured status for migrants seeking a better life. This may be due, in part, to the so-called pull factors. Significantly higher wages in Britain, nearly 5 times the average wage in Bulgaria, and access to benefits in the UK. The other, not insignificant pull factor is the UK's reputation for being a soft touch on crime. The Romanian average wage is less than the UK's over 25 job seekers allowance. Even those in well-paid parts of the Romanian and Bulgarian economies earn less than UK full-timers on the minimum wage. Add to this the desire for family reunification, and this could bump up migrant numbers both rapidly and significantly. In contrast to most other EU member states, Britain will pay benefits without a history of past contributions to the exchequer. Romanians and Bulgarians who come to the UK and find work immediately enjoy access to in-work benefits, housing benefit, child benefit, and tax credits. Past evidence shows that the number of foreign nationals claiming job seekers allowance grew by 40% in 4 years. Once in the UK, some Romanians are registering as self-employed to sell the big issue so they can get national insurance numbers, vital for claiming benefits. The exploitation of this loophole has become so widespread that now over a third of all big issue sellers are Romanians. Access to child benefit is an attractive proposition for many. A Bulgarian or Romanian working in Britain could claim for 2 children and receive an amount that was equivalent to a week's minimum wage in his home country, just as 30,000 children residing in Poland currently receive UK child benefit. The experience of migration from Poland would be a good guide. In 2003, the UK government estimated 13,000 people would arrive annually from the East European accession states. They were wrong. By 2013, the figure had climbed to around 1 million. A BBC survey indicated around 330,000 Romanians and Bulgarians were actively considering work in the UK, whilst a survey carried out for the EU Parliament projected that around 400,000 Bulgarians would wish to leave the country in the next 2 years, with the UK the destination of choice for nearly a quarter of those. And it's not just Eastern Europeans. 2013 saw a major uplift in the number of migrants from Spain and Italy that registered for a British national insurance number, as our ports are seeing more and more migrants moving to the UK to avoid the recession. The hand of the EU is evident in many aspects of the population crisis the UK is facing. In recent surveys of voters, immigration was put at the top of the list of priorities. 65% said they would like to see control over immigration between EU countries returned to the UK. Only 17% believe the benefits of immigration outweigh the disadvantages. Clearly, something has to be done now. But the UK government appears powerless to oppose the will of Brussels.
Immigration is neither good nor bad. It depends on the numbers and the context. Britain is a geographically small and overcrowded island. We simply do not need continual waves of new migrants.
Radical measures could make a difference. However, there is one sting in the tail awaiting us all. Hidden away in the detail of the infamous EU Lisbon Treaty is the new common immigration and asylum policy, and it applies to migrants from both the EU and from outside. Ultimately, the EU will dictate UK immigration policy.
Mass uncontrolled immigration into Britain has been a disaster. We need an immigration policy based on the needs of the British people and not one dictated by the European Union and its ideological commitment to a borderless European state. We have to regain control of who can and cannot come and live in our country, and the only way we can do that is for us to leave the European Union.
The UK can regain control of its borders and bring stability to the unprecedented growth in population we have seen in recent years. With the right policies, it is achievable. But as a matter of urgency, the first step must be for the UK to leave the European Union. Only then can Britain be free to implement its own policies to tackle this most important of issues.